Episode 8 of New and Noteworthy.
Hey everyone, this is Zach Johnson of the Rise of the Entrepreneur Podcast, and you're listening to the Dave Westwood New and Noteworthy Podcast.
Are you ready to experience the future? Welcome to the New and Noteworthy Podcast, where it's out with the old and in with the new. Dave Westwood brings you the celebrities of tomorrow as today's newest podcasters share their stories, their journey, and their show. So get ready, because the New and Noteworthy Podcast starts now.
My guest today as a child was always obese. As an adult, he lost 60 pounds and became involved in the fitness industry as a result. He now runs a fitness consulting business and is the host of FitMarketer Podcast. Shea McVaugh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave. Thank you for having me on today.
No problem. Before we talk about the podcast itself, I'd like to know a little bit more about you and your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of got my start in business and marketing, actually playing music in a band years ago. And it was, the marketing was awful, but but I got better. So the drummer in my band was a personal trainer, and at some point I came to him and I just said, hey, look, can you please just teach me how to eat. Show me how to do a squat properly. I know nothing. I've been an indoor kid my whole life. You know, I was obese, definitely obese. So he just kind of took me under his wing, and we worked out together 5 days a week for like 6 months straight. He never asked for a dime for me. He told me I just have to keep the music coming, and and he didn't need any other compensation. So I started feeling tremendously indebted to my friend, and I realized what a huge, powerful change a little education and motivation and accountability can create for somebody. And that really is regardless of whatever your goal is that you're trying to accomplish. And so I liked the idea, as I developed my career in online marketing, of working with fitness instructors and gym owners, because I see them as being force multipliers. They go out and they disseminate the information and they build a following. So it just sort of became a really great fit for me. I'd worked across a lot of different industries, but I became really passionate about helping these people that, you know, are doing a really good and I would consider noble profession, going out and teaching people how to take care of themselves and giving them the tools to be self-sufficient. But at the same time, you know, I feel a debt to these people and what they do, and I just wanted to give that back. So,
well, the fitness industry certainly has a lot of competition, and there's definitely a lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges that you see smaller fitness clubs and professionals trying to compete with, like some of the big box type gyms?
You know, the whole big box versus smaller gym thing is kind of less important in the big scheme of things, because there's going to be these commercial chain gyms. It's sort of an ecosystem, right? And they're going to be there regardless. But there are advantages to being a smaller business. You're more nimble. You are trying to you can eschew that whole mass appeal thing that ends up creating no appeal, to some people. And with a lot of those chain gyms, you'll see issues with service. You'll see issues where their in-house trainers are not adequately educated and prepared to deliver a good experience. So there's always going to be a place for the smaller gyms. But what I see as the real challenge facing the smaller gyms, which is primarily who I work with, is they often are caught in a couple of traps, one of them being that they own a job rather than a business. And this goes more toward the solopreneur side of my audience, where they are just running like a hamster in a wheel, selling packages, in groups of 5 to 20, and constantly having to go down and shake trees and find new people and be at a certain place at a certain time to make money. So lack of, a vision for scale can often get in the way of the business, and they just end up like I said, trapped on that hamster wheel. And then paired with that is this problem where there's not a lot of technical or marketing savvy in this place. Like there's 100,000 brilliant coaches in this country, and all of them have awesome things that they can teach you, but most of them are great coaches. They're not necessarily great at selling themselves or building something that will scale or even tuning their message to the right people.
Gotcha. Well, with regard to these challenges, do you think kind of that churn rate of trying to retain customers or getting new customers is a bigger obstacle?
It really depends on the business. It's definitely getting new clients or members is always an obstacle, and especially with the way that there's more and more noise in the world now that you're competing against, that you do have to be somewhat surgical in the way that you approach finding new people. Retention. A lot of things that you can, like real concrete things you can do to increase your retention are just look at things like ongoing education through an autoresponder sequence through an email and things like that, where you maintain touch points with them and bring them along, and then you build an audience where you can potentially sell them things that they don't have to be meeting with you one-on-one or coming to your facility to take advantage of. So it's always a two-pronged sword. You can always work on your retention and improve your retention, but you can always also go out and find new customers too.
Gotcha. So, as I mentioned earlier, you do have a consulting company. What kind of strategies do you do to help, grow these businesses that really, as you said, aren't seeing things and seeing that bigger picture?
So there's a couple of things we do. It's actually a full-service marketing agency for gyms and people who are operating in the fitness space at a scaled-out level. But what we specialize in is digital advertising. So using different techniques to buy ads on Facebook, Twitter, Google AdWords, getting into things like retargeting, and finding new ways to bring people to your website, and then using your website as a selling tool to get people into your facility to join your gym.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned, obviously, social media, website. How do you think technology's changed the industry apart from those areas?
Yeah, so there are a number of people who have really run with the scale that the internet provides. There are people who have built companies, from their living room that reach a global audience. What's really changed with the way I see the technology moving is that the barriers to entry are getting lower and lower, and the technology is more easy to work with, cheaper to get a hold of, more versatile. But that also increases your competition, the amount of people that are jumping into the pool, so to speak. So we find that you just need to go about your messaging in a way that positions you as, you don't want to be a personal trainer, just a commodity at that point. What you want to be is, I'm the expert on, I specialize in dealing with injury prevention, with prehabilitation. And you create, a platform or create a product or whatever around that niche, and you let people that need what you have to offer come to you. And then you just have to be great at your material, which is, between the trainer and the governing body that issues them their certification at that point.
Well, you kind of referenced about, more and more people jumping in the pool because of technology. There's definitely a lot of trends these days in the fitness industry. A couple that come to mind for me are CrossFit and MMA. Do you think these new hot trends kind of bring more awareness to the industry, or do they just kind of muddy the waters and just, make it more crowded?
So there's good with the bad. The fitness industry is a monolith that nobody can stop, and it keeps getting bigger and more important to us as a culture and a society. At least here in the U.S. and it's big, and several of the other major industrialized countries like the UK and Australia and Canada. That there's always going to be good with the bad, but the way that this technology is advancing is that the purveyors of the internet, the sort of the gatekeepers of the internet, people like Google and YouTube and these different companies, Apple with their iTunes store, they are cataloging the internet for us, and they're getting better at doing it. So the people who are delivering quality information, the people who are building a community, they're always going to do well because they are operating in like a sustainable way. But if you're just doing a flash in the pan, I'm going to set up a sales page and drive traffic to it through this way, and you're going to get burned eventually by somebody who takes the time to build a platform and lay the groundwork out.
Gotcha. Well, we talked about technology kind of changing the industry and new trends in fitness. Do you see other trends kind of affecting the marketplace? Obviously, over the past couple of years, even though there's a turnaround now, the economic climate, people having disposable income, was definitely an issue, a few years back.
Yeah, and there was a big change at that point where a lot of the industry moved over to a boot camp model, and people started getting more regular for these businesses to switch over to like a monthly billing thing instead of selling packages, right? But in terms of ways that the trends that we're seeing in the future, I think this goes back to technology again, but I think the wearable tech is going to be big, right? Because what we're going to be on the horizon of now, what we have coming into fruition is this place where we can measure all of these things inside of us that give us clues about how our body reacts to the exercise that we submit it to or the food that we feed it to. So a big trend that I see coming is that we are going to get a lot of information coming in, and we're going to drown in it. And the next big spot where people can sort of position themselves to get ahead of the wave is being the person who can give actionable, prescriptive advice based upon these numbers and analytics and things that we're pulling with all this wearable tech. So that's a big thing that I see coming.
And you kind of alluded to it in your answer, but I know on your website, FitMarketer.net, you have lots of healthy recipes and eating tips. How important is it for a fitness facility to kind of integrate that part of the healthy lifestyle into their programs?
This is, based on my own experience now, I consider myself, I'm not a fitness instructor or a nutritionist of any kind. I am somebody who I was, coached and trained, and I have done my own research, and I've consulted with doctors and things. So I know what works for me and what has worked for me in the past. And I've always seen the nutrition side to be actually more important to, at least when you're looking at it from like a weight loss and even a performance standpoint, than the exercise. Because going out and doing a bunch of squats, but then not eating well, not getting your protein intake and the vitamins you need to process the protein and stuff like that, then it's like trying to build a brick wall without mortar. So the thing is that there's just a sea of this contradictory dietary information. So if you can become somebody who can curate that information, and you can go out and you can build a case study with your own clients or members in your own gym, and then go forward and say, well, this is a case study basing testing this dietary principle or whatever, and you start committing to furthering people's education in nutrition, retention rates in gyms are certainly going to skyrocket, because I don't know if you've ever suffered from overtraining. I don't know if there's a more technical word for it, but when you're not taking in enough food to support the amount of physical exercise you're doing, and you just feel crappy and my energy's low and I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, just that alone could derail somebody's, possibly newfound commitment to exercise. So giving people the tools that they need to be self-sufficient in the kitchen is going to keep them coming to your gym more and more. So to put the roundabout answer in a very short way, yes, I think it's very important to look at the diet, and I would argue more important, but a lot of my coaches might not want to hear that.
Well, you are someone that's, a consultant, so hopefully they are taking your advice. And like I said, there's lots of great tips on your website. So I recommend anybody that's kind of looking for that advice to go there at fitmarketing.net. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast. What inspired you to start the podcast?
I've actually had an interest in radio since I was a kid, and for some reason I kind of just I always put it up on like this pedestal, kind of like thinking of it like I want to be a rock star or a professional athlete. Like there's only so many radio stations, so many cities. That's not increasing. The human population, I just never thought it was realistic. And then, I knew about podcasting for many years before I actually got into it. But when I finally jumped into actually being a listener, it was much easier to do what you needed to do to be a podcaster at that point. And shortly after I broke into listening to podcasts as a medium of information intake, it's now my favorite medium of information intake, that was when I started really furthering my education in the concepts and practices of online marketing and advertising. And when, I started blogging, but I kind of put the podcast off for a long time, too long, and especially too long because blogging just drained me and I wasn't getting much of a response from it. To this day, it's a listener audience for sure. The coach audience is, at least. And so finally I just did it, and I recorded a kind of an interview real tentatively that never actually even saw the light of day, and I just put a date on a calendar and bought a mic on Amazon that Pat Flynn recommended, and I just kind of went for it, and I haven't looked back since. I basically don't blog at all anymore, and just anything that I want to put out content-wise is now done in the podcast.
Pretty cool. And I guess you've seen more of a response than you ever have from your blogging?
Yeah. I was able to do some things to get myself into New and Noteworthy and to get the word out. But it's an audience of busy people that don't have enough time already. And they're also working out, and often they're driving between like different facilities where they're working. So it just sort of fit when they can load me on their phone and put their earbuds in and take me in the car or wherever they're going, or listen to me while they're working out or whatever.
Well, what was the biggest challenge to starting your podcast?
Probably me. I was just dealing with, I wondered if I could put together something that was interesting, if I could put something together that's entertaining, if I would, fall flat with the content in some way, or, maybe people hate the sound of my voice. I don't know. There was a lot of like procrastination involved that probably had roots in some kind of self-doubt. But as soon as I did it and just kind of gave myself permission to be bad, I just went for it. I still might be bad. I don't know. I've gotten some compliments, but I might be bad.
Well, I have gotten a chance to listen to a couple of your episodes, and I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
No worries there. Tell listeners of this show kind of what they're going to expect to hear on your podcast, what kind of guests you have had already, and some of the topics you've discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of rotate it, and I try and bring in people from the industry, and I also try to bring in people from like the online business and marketing circles, so that I have certain, half of the content is, I try to keep it all actionable in nature, but half of the content is kind of designed to inspire and get you thinking and give you ideas, and half of it is sort of taken from a practical how-to kind of stance. So I appeal to beginners in that way, and then people who want to go to the next level have the opportunity to obviously jump into consulting with me. But it's not even something that I really focus on really hard in the podcast. For me right now, it's mostly just getting out the word, and that word is you can scale your business, you can make yourself completely location independent, you can make more money than you ever thought you could, and have less hassle than you ever thought you did if you're just intentional about the way you structure your business from the get-go.
Yeah, that's definitely advice that can be applied, I would think, pretty much to any business, not just one specific to the fitness industry.
Absolutely.
So, what's your biggest thrill to date with the podcast so far?
Seeing myself crack into the top 10 for all of business and New Noteworthy was pretty cool. I have no idea how long I was up there for. I hadn't checked it in a while, but I did manage to get a screen cap, so that that was pretty cool. And I've had some really awesome guests, and I've made some great relationships, friendships in some cases with some of the people that I've had on, and I've had some really heavy hitters that are people that are doing business worldwide and have massive audiences, and it's been great.
Oh, cool. So what can listeners expect from future episodes of the podcast?
Oh, I've got so much. I've got so much in the can already. It's going to be more of the same. There's a case study I'm working on, a woman named Melissa Whitmer, who is going to be appearing on the next episode I publish. She has an ultimate Frisbee coaching platform online. So she teaches ultimate athletes how to step up their game and strength and conditioning workouts. So she is putting together a big conference, like a worldwide conference, week-long, 20 speakers, and then we're going to come back, bring her on, and do like a post-mortem of that event and talk about, what she did in her marketing and her setup, how she executed on it. We'll go all the way through the process. So that is something that I'm really excited about that's coming up soon.
Yeah, pretty cool. Well, definitely, I'm sure this show will probably air after that, so I'll definitely put a link up in the show notes. I know we talked about podcasting and things like that. What's your favorite podcast?
Oh, my favorite podcast? That's a really good question. It kind of depends. One of my favorites that's actually now defunct. It was called the Foolish Adventure Podcast. A guy named Tim Conley, who's now my mentor. I'm in his mastermind group, actually. And that was really great in terms of internet marketing and business education. I really like that. The Tim Ferriss's new podcast has been fantastic. I've been listening to that. I don't know if that guy is capable of putting out that work. I haven't seen it yet. And maybe I'll give. Let's see what else is exciting that I've been listening to lately. I got to give it to Pat Flynn too. Smart Passive Income. Pat's an awesome guy. He's the internet equivalent of giving you the shirt off of his back. So anybody that wants to listen to marketing that's not specifically tailored for the fitness industry, Pat Flynn, I cannot recommend that highly enough too.
Likewise, I definitely subscribe to Smart Passive Income myself, and every time a new episode comes up, that's usually one of the first things I pop in the morning. What advice would you give to anyone that's going to looking to start or grow their podcast?
So just do it, and don't give yourself permission to be bad, and just put a bunch of episodes in the can. Even if you are feeling totally not confident, just get them done. And when you have like your fifth one versus when you have your first one, it's going to be a huge world of difference. And you're going to look at those two episodes and the differences between them, and that is going to make all of the hesitation about your ability to execute on this go away. So keep it simple. Don't overproduce it. Get a $40 mic from Amazon, from Pat Flynn's How to Podcast tutorial. And you're going to be ahead of the game in a lot of ways at that point.
Gotcha. And I'm going to ask, is that the Audio-Technica AT2100?
That is the one.
I definitely recommend that myself. That's the one I'm using. So at least on your end, it sounds great. So, we'll definitely put a link up to that because, yeah, I agree. For the money compared to, let's say, the Heil PR40 or some of the other microphones, the sound is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
So
I'll get a Heil at some point, but it's not that huge of a difference, and it's a big difference in price. So just don't let the hardware stop you from getting in the game because it's a great mic for $40.
No, absolutely. Now, if you had to start your podcast all over again, what would you do differently?
Ooh, that is a good question. And this is like an awful admission for a digital advertising consultant to make, but I would have actually done a hell of a lot more work setting up my ad campaigns to promote it so that I could have generated a bigger groundswell, the week of or the week after even. So, yeah, I would have definitely done 4 to 9 weeks of preliminary testing, just testing the different elements of the ad, and I would have had a bunch of targeted ads ready to roll out to proven markets the day that I saw that I was live in iTunes. So if I was going to change one thing, that is what I would have changed.
Well, hopefully I don't stump you with this next question. It's one I always like to ask my guests. Tell us something that your listeners probably don't know about you already.
So all the music in the podcast is my old band. And I've never talked about that or announced it before, and nobody's asked. But there's bumper music at the beginning and in transitions between the interview and the intro and the outro. And that's all my old band, and that is where I got my start in marketing.
Pretty cool. So tell us where we can find you and your podcast.
Great. So if you go to FitMarketer.net, that is sort of my hub. I've been really getting into Twitter lately, and I have a difficult to spell last name. So if you go to fitmarketer.net/Twitter, you'll find my Twitter account. I'll have that all set up and ready to go. So you can find me there if you like to get on the tweet train. And I don't tell people to find me on Facebook because Facebook sucks for everything except advertising. So don't look me up on Facebook because I won't see it.
Shea McVaugh, FitMarketer.net, the FitMarketer Podcast. Thank you so much today for being on the show. We'll talk to you later.
Great. Thank you for having me on, Dave. You guys all have a great week.
New and Noteworthy is brought to you by...
If you're looking for affordable, reliable web hosting, look no further than Bluehost. Hosting plans start at $3.95 per month, and with one-click WordPress integration, there's no easier way to get your website up and running. Go to newandnoteworthy.net/Bluehost or click the Bluehost banner on our website to get started.
You've been listening to New and Noteworthy. To get show notes for today's episode, along with other great resources, go to newandnoteworthy.net. You can also connect with the show at the New and Noteworthy page on Facebook or follow Dave on Twitter at QWestwood. And if you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher.